I wanted to talk to you today about carpenter bees. They can be very destructive. They like to drill holes in wood. And I have a barn that has lots of holes where they have drilled in to build their nest. And if they can't find a hole to build a nest, they'll just make another hole. And so my barn is full of these holes that have been drilled in there by the carpenter bees. And a lot of people have asked me, how can you get rid of carpenter bees? Well, today I'm going to show you a way to build a trap where you can catch the carpenter bees. First thing you'll need a drill, a few bits, 3/4 inch bit, a 1/2 inch bit, a 1 inch hole saw, and an 1/8 of an inch bit. You need a few pieces of 2x4 scrap, a glass jar with a lid, a few small screws or some nails, some eye hole screws, and some wood glue, and some clamps. You start off by using some 2x4s and cutting them into 4-inch blocks. And for each trap you'll need 2 blocks that are about 4 inches long. Now I plan on building about 3 of these traps, so I'm going to cut some extra blocks. Once you get your blocks cut, you just glue them together with some wood glue. Now you could just use 4x4 blocks and you wouldn't have to glue anything together, but the 4x4s that I had available were treated lumber, and I don't think carpenter bees like treated lumber, so that may deter them from going into the trap. So just to make sure, I'm just using regular 2x4 lumber. So once you get all the blocks applied with glue, then you just put them in a clamp and clamp them together. If you're only gluing just a couple of blocks together, you could just use a vise or something as opposed to pipe clamps. Now we'll just let that dry. So it's been drying for about 3 hours now, so it should be dry enough to take out of the clamps. I think I must have got a little spot of glue between those two. They should pop apart with a little effort. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drill a 3/4 inch hole in the center of it. We're not going to go all the way through. We're going to go down about 3 inches. Put a piece of tape on my bit so I'll know when I get down to about 3 inches deep. And now that you've got the hole in the center, we're going to drill holes in the sides. But we're going to reduce the holes in the sides down to about a 1/2 inch bit. And we're going to drill them at an angle. You want to drill them about at a 45-degree angle. Usually I start off going in straight and then tilt the bit. It's a lot easier to angle the bit once you get it started. If you start off trying to drill at an angle, your bit just kind of wants to slide down the piece of wood. So I start off going in straight, and once I get in just a little bit, I'll tilt it at about a 45-degree angle and drill through until I reach the center hole that I drilled. You're going to drill a hole in all 4 sides of it. Now you just need to get all the sawdust out of the inside of it. From where each hole was drilled, sawdust kind of moves over to the other holes. So just clean it out. Make sure all your holes are open so that the bees can crawl in. Now we're going to use a glass jar, and we're going to drill a hole in the lid of it. This is just a mason jar, but you could use other types of jars. Just needs to be clear. I'm drilling about a 1-inch hole in the lid of the jar. Now I'm going to switch the bit and put in about 1/8 of an inch bit. I just want to make a little bitty hole so that I can put a screw through it. I'm just going to drill a hole between the ring of the jar and the hole that I've drilled in the center. And I'm going to drill a hole on each side. Now you take the lid off of the jar and place it over the hole that's in the block of wood, and then just attach it with some screws. If you don't want to use screws, you could use a nail. I just prefer to use screws. Now I'm going to flip it over, and I'm just going to drill me a little pilot hole in the other side, about 1/8 of an inch bit. Just make a little pilot hole so I can put a eye hook in there. Find it much easier to screw the eye hook in if you've got a pilot hole. And then you just screw the jar onto the lid and you hang it up wherever you have carpenter bees at. And they'll go in the holes and they'll go down into the glass jar and they'll be trapped there. I've hung mine out in my barn where I have a lot of carpenter bees flying around, so they'll go down in the jar and they'll realize they're trapped, then they'll try to get out, but they'll just fly towards the light. They won't go back up and go back out the hole. So then they'll just be stuck in the jar and they'll eventually die. I want to give you an update on my bees. I installed a larger tube last week going out the window, and I think I showed you a video about that. But they're doing very good. They have created a lot of brood. This was my first section that I added, and this was my second section, and they've got it almost completely drawed out. There's a little bitty spot at the bottom that they haven't drawed out yet. And over here is where I have attached my tube going down to my flow hive, and they're starting to make their way from the hive down to the flow hive, because I opened that up this week to where they could go down inside there. And this is the third frame that I added, and they have just about completely have it filled out with comb. Mostly looks like they're filling it with sugar water. They're starting to cap it off. And my tube I added last week, they are using it. You can see it's very full of bees where they're traveling all the way down and out the opening. It's kind of hard to see them. The tube isn't real clear. But they're still using the old tube too, that's very small. I thought maybe they would stop using it as much, but apparently they're still using it a lot. And you can see outside the window there's a lot of activity on both entrances. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did, click the subscribe button and click that notification bell, and you'll be notified when I post a new video. Thanks for watching.